Story I shouldn't have known that narrative. It was evident that she believed she was being discreet enough that I didn't get caught. I was too busy to notice. Yet I noticed the signals, and after seeing them, I was unable to unsee them. It began with minor details, items that had no meaning by itself. The way she abruptly became more keeping her phone face-protected down on the table, shutting out alerts, the way she began to move out more, providing ambiguous justifications for who she was with and where she was heading. However, the most obvious indication is the financial shifts. She abandoned her laptop one evening, open on the counter in the kitchen as she took a shower that I wasn't searching for. I didn't need the screen for anything. An email from a divorce right there. Next steps, attorney subject line. I felt sick to my stomach when I clicked the email. Before I started to doubt myself there, it was obvious that she was getting ready to leave, not simply because I was considering it. When I started designing it, I realized this wasn't a difficult period. Something we intended to resolve, her decision, had already been made, and if she was receiving legal counsel prior to even indicating to me that she was acting behind my back, I inhaled deeply. Making myself maintain my composure, if I confronted her at that precise moment, what would occur? She would turn it down and reject it. She would pretend that I was behaving paranoid as if I were insane. Nay, I had to play this game since I wanted to play it more effectively. Therefore, I began to pay. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't merely a lawyer she had consulted. She had additionally been considering flats that she hadn't not been entered in an application. But the tables on her browser informed me of all I needed to conveniently learn: new locations, monthly expenses near her place of employment, pet policies, and leasing terms. As she was getting ready to leave, I looked up the funds in our joint bank account and observed a little pattern withdrawals that are sufficient to pass under the radar, a few hundred here, a couple. She was embezzling money there, gradually into her own account. Little, ensuring that when she departed, she had a cushion. At the time that she wasn't only she intended to take as much leave as possible. I had to move quickly with her as much as possible. I would be caught off guard if I delayed too long. By a divorce filing a lawsuit regarding assets, a battle for which I was unprepared, she believed she had the advantage. She assumed I would sit there looking foolish. Anxious to hear the news she received, I had already realized that I hadn't wasted time. As soon as I recognized her plan, I realized I needed to go more quickly. Has been discreetly setting up for spending months to secure an escape, make plans to ensure that when she eventually revealed that she would leave with the greatest bargain. But I had an advantage. She believed I had no idea what I maintained my schedule just as it was. Didn't behave any differently. I nevertheless made. During dinner, small talk was still discussed. She continued to act as though she was unaware of it. Sometimes she would send a brief, covert text. While keeping her back to me, she was unable to understand that I was putting things in place already. Motion was the first thing I performed on my end, was to determine what I could sell. Our home was jointly owned right away. Therefore, selling that wasn't yet an option. Somehow. But everything that was inside it I began, with the large ticket in the fair game. Things we hardly used from the extra car are gone, sold in a day, and she didn't even realize it. The pricey electronics I use for gaming, put up the sound equipment, and large screen TV. Every item on the internet was sold to Eager. When customers paid with cash, I made sure to, additionally, get rid of the smaller items. Jewelry for furniture. Items that I knew she would attempt to collect. Assert that in the beginning of the divorce, I even discovered a buyer that is prepared to purchase our costly mattress if she so desired. I would make damn him if you would go and take half. I was certain that there was nothing more to take. Moved quickly, although I was cautious not to overnight. The house would be empty. Too evident, so I dispersed the sales instead. Over a few weeks, in a calculated manner, taking stuff out while making it appear I rearranged as if nothing had happened. Furniture shifted smaller objects into storage, maintained the space's appearance, just busy enough to keep her from noticing the gradual loss of our resources. Afterward, I transferred the finance side as much money as we can from our joint account prior to her depleting it. I wasn't able to clear it entirely, foolishness that would have given her away. Rather, I made it appear normal. Spending money on renovations for the house. Various purchases gradually, I transferred money to an account that she was unable to access at the time. It would be too late, she realized. And then I made sure to make the last move. Every sale I made was completed in a manner that the car couldn't be legally contested, sold via appropriate channels, private sales of furniture and electronics. Nothing was recorded beneath the table. I wasn't able to undo anything, merely attempting. To get rid of items, I was ensuring she had no means of returning later and assert that I had assets that were hidden. I was simply following the rules more. Compared to her, she believed she had the superiority. She was unaware that, by the when she moved, there would be, I didn't leave anything for her to take. Understand the precise moment she dropped the bomb. However, I anticipated it because she had been assembling her components with care, ensuring that when she eventually said she would have everything she said, required her own space, her own funds and precise plan, although she was unaware of it. The night it happened, I beat her to it. Occurred, she began acting strangely more. Self-assured as someone entering a dialogue that they have already practiced, she wasn't in their minds. 100 times. She was anxious but not hesitating. She was in authority, or at least she believed she was. We took a seat in the living room, less full than it had been a few. She hadn't noticed weeks ago, or perhaps she simply didn't give a damn and let out breath as though she were getting ready for a performance, after which she commented, "I believe I might have acted dumb, but I need to discuss. Could have pretended to be shocked, but I simply nodded while waiting. I've been considering a great deal about our marriage," she went on to voice with precision, "and I simply don't believe we're content right now. I believe we should keep our emotions apart." With hesitation, she was making a choice. Without seeking my input, I maintained my neutral expression. Okay, that threw her off a bit. As she had anticipated opposition, perhaps an argument she made forward, "I've already had a conversation with a lawyer, and I believe that it would be ideal if we resolved this as amicably as we could ought to divide things equally." The resource, and that's when I noticed how small it was. Flash of avarice she believed she was, I let her finish before cashing in. I'm leaning back in my chair. I took a folder out of the side table and positioned it before her. Sale records, bank transactions, and receipts. A lapse in confidence. What is this? I just said, "Everything's already gone." She flipped, because there was nothing to split. She scanned the pages with her eyes. Evidence of each and every sale and account make adjustments to all of my previous moves. She may even put the documents in her face lost its color, which isn't. She muttered, "Perhaps," and I shrugged. Everything was sold prior to the legal. Even the money was on the table for a divorce. Nothing has been moved or spent yet. Her jaw clenched as she left our names. You cannot simply say, "I can," as I did, appeared to be about to scream, but the A's she began to realize she had anticipated to leave with half of the house, half the savings, and half of all that we had constructed, but suddenly, there she had played and there was nothing left to take. Her game, but she was unaware that I had played mine better for a considerable amount of time. Simply sat there looking at the papers. I observed her clenching her fingers. The documents. Her respiration was irregular, and she wasn't surprised that she was having difficulties. In order to comprehend what had just transpired, this wasn't the result she had practiced in. She had most likely imagined her head, herself, quietly sitting there and saying her conditions, perhaps providing me with some generous make concessions, while secretly enjoying the The reality that she would be leaving with instead, she was half of everything, recognizing that there was nothing more to accept. At last, her voice emerged from the harsh quiet, and I can't believe this is a joke. Didn't speak, I simply observed as she felt the first glimmer of panic. Face as she leafed through the documents. Her gaze flits over the sale once more. Proof in the form of bank transactions and receipts that I had disassembled all of the financial benefit she believed she had sold you. Her voice was already trembling from everything, but she was clearly attempting to cling on to her poise, nodded in agreement with everything that wasn't restrained, was it? Her face twisted to the breaking point. Fury as she forcefully closed the folder, and you had no right to shove it away from her. I could feel the heat behind me, she yelled. Her remarks, the intense annoyance and incredulity that she had been so certain she had, it was discovered that she had planned and she was in the ideal position, but she was now recognizing that everything had been pointless. So I repeated, raising an eyebrow, that you intended to divorce me without warning and take all that we constructed together. But I have no right to defend myself, she yelled. Her hands are now pacing from her seat. It is crazy that she is soaring to her head. Is so crazy that tears started to fall. These were irate and shed tears of regret. Irritated, angry, and teary-eyed like you tears upon realizing that the triumph you were expecting to get ripped away from you. It's unbelievable that you did. She choked you out, ruining you. I leaned forward and replied, No. I simply made sure you didn't walk gently. Got away with more than you were due. Set her off once more, and she came charging at me, pointing at my face with a trembling finger. You believe you're intelligent, and that this makes you some sort of genius, she said. Sharp, sour chuckle. But I'll be back. I'll cut her off if you take this to court. Be sure to take it before she finishes. You won't receive a dime of everything in court. Was lawfully sold prior to the divorce. Procedure began. You can consult your attorney. And it dawned on her then that she knew I was correct. She wasn't merely upset that she lost and became enraged. Upon realizing she couldn't do anything about it, she tightened her fists at her. She was on both sides. Seething, I was angry. Yet beyond that rage, I saw. She turned away from another defeat. Her hands were still ragged from her breathing, clutching her temples as though attempting to determine how in the hell this had occurred if I kept silent. There was. She had expected to say nothing more. Leave with everything. But instead, she was leaving empty-handed. She rushed out. Not in the dramatic door that night. The way you see her in movies is banging. She was left in startled silence, so firmly that her knuckles turned. I was fully aware of who she was about. I sat back and waited to call her lawyer. There was nothing more I could do. The following day, the difficult portion was already over. My phone rang, but I didn't recognize the number. I let it ring, and you have to guess who it was. Before responding, yes, a measured 2 times. The line was answered by a professional voice. Greetings, this is a call on behalf of about your recent asset, my client liquidation. I grinned and said, Here we go. I assumed I would hear from you there. Was a pause, the attorney probably anticipating my agitation to continue. According to my client, most of your joint assets were sold. Before the divorce process began, she feels that these exchanges took place and she thinks I asked in poor faith. Another pause while maintaining a neutral tone. Indeed, I already knew that even he didn't think he was telling the truth. I reclined in my chair and did everything I sold was completed lawfully, and I have documentation of every sale was carried out. Prior to her filing, and as you most likely already informed her, so she no longer has any legal right to any of it. Pause this. Time, and the final action I anticipated hearing well, the attorney stated. I have to admit I laughed a little. That was brilliant. I apologize. I blinked. Been in practice for more than 15 years. His tone was now almost amused, and I've seen numerous attempts at stunts prior to a divorce, although this was tidy. No dishonesty, no secret accounts, and no shady transfers that are just proactive liquidation. He sighed and glanced away from the note that she believed she had this locked down. She believed she would leave with a large paycheck. She's now enraged, and to be honest, she's squandering her time attempting to. I grinned. So she's got to fight this. He confirmed that she has nothing. Remained silent for a moment, just allowing it to sink in. This man was recruited to fight me, but even I played the game, and he had to acknowledge it. Better. Finally, I said, "Thank you for the call." On the other end, there was a little chuckle. Yes, good luck on the line in everything. Went lifeless. I slowly released my breath, releasing my phone out. She believed she had me. It comes out that she was the one who cornered after that phone. I never saw it coming. I knew the call was over since there was no court battle rather than a protracted legal battle she had already lost before she began, and she knew it. So she tried for a few weeks to continue the battle out of sheer resentment. At the very least, she sent irate emails. Have her attorney create a pointless, even made threats to guilt-trip me in a few final texts. But the truth was merely because she had nothing to defend, assets to assert without any financial leverage. She had the upper hand, but her anger doesn't alter the truth. Then she keeps quiet, ceased making calls and messaging, ceased attempting to elicit a response from. She had no choice but to let me know that it was over. Accept it, at which point I allowed. For the first time, I breathed in. I wasn't searching for what seemed like forever, waiting for the next one over my shoulder. Move. I wasn't expecting a blow that never arrived. I had triumphed, and I could now, ultimately, proceed with the first thing. I cleared out the remainder of the house. The room felt vacant, but not in a negative way. It was a new beginning, a blank slate, and I packed a bag and sold what little was left. One bag, and the location behind her intended to abandon me with nothing. Rather, I was the one leaving on my own terms, I learned a few months later. Through pals that are mutually had not been as easy for her, she lined up an apartment, but it fell. Moment she became aware that she didn't possess the amount of money she anticipated. Financial buffers she believed she would be. Having left, she had relied on a simple, cozy transition where she would gently land as I was left alone. Instead, she said she was the one while scurrying. I struggled and failed to gloat. She didn't have to because her scheme had fallen through, and she was solely responsible for her own actions. In the meantime, I was doing okay without the burden of that poisonous marriage weighing on everything. Felt lighter when I was down. My money was secure and I was free. And I've not done it for a long time. Was not trapped, but rather looking forward. In a game I was never interested in playing, she believed she was creating her greatest life decision. Turns out to be the move was, our tale is over if you're smarter. Since you've come this far, how about joining our channel is beneficial to us. Incredibly, I've chosen 2 more videos. For you, something I'm confident you'll find enjoyable. Feel free to click on them and I'll wait. I'll see you in the next story.